Joining me today on Brief Encounters is Lucy Bassli, founder and principal of InnoLaw Group, legal operations pioneer, and author of CLM Simplified and the Simple Guide to Legal Innovation. Welcome, Brief Encounters, Lucy.
Thank you.
You spent a whole bunch of years at the forefront of legal operations. In fact, when we first met, you may remember we were writing a book called What is Legal Operations and How to Do It. It was that long ago. But tell us a bit, how did you get into all of this?
Wow, you know what? It definitely was not intentional. I honestly attribute it to just the nature of who I am and how I work. To me, there was such a logical, obvious way to do things, and with all due respect, in the law firm world, that just didn't quite work together very well. I mean, I was about speed and efficiency, and I'm done. I did a quick review. It's good enough. Let's get it out the door. And then I was like, oh, wait, yeesh, what am I going to do for the other 7.4 hours of my day? Because that's all that mattered. So once I came in house, it felt like I had this natural tendency that was allowed to blossom and was rewarded. I didn't know it was called innovation. I just certainly didn't know it was called operations. I just knew there was a kind of a logical path and way to do things. So happened very organically. And then it was nice to realize, oh, wait, there's a thing here and it could be applied more broadly. And it is really just, again, my natural tendency to get stuff done. So it was accidental.
And tell us a bit about moving in-house. We have lots of conversations with folks who sort of move in-house for different reasons, but what made you make that move, and kind of what were your observations going in? What was different?
You know, what made me make the move? It's going to be the age-old story of I just got pregnant with my first kiddo, and I thought, oh, how in the world am I going to do this? And sadly, again, there's the realities of law firm life, and those it was challenging. That's number one on the personal side. I think on the professional side, I have, again, my tendency, not natural. I'm a cheerleader. I want to be a part of something. I want to be involved in something. I love what I do and I love getting involved. And so being a part of a business was really exciting to me. So that was this other piece of it, and not just any business. I'm a big Microsoft fan. I live in the area, of course, so it's all around us. It's like a bubble. And I was like, oh my God, I got to be there. So when they were a client of ours at the firm, it was just like such a natural. Oh, can I really? Is it, can it happen? So that was timing, serendipity, opportunity, relationships, network connection. All of that is to come together. And then my perception. It's a world of a difference in house. It's amazing still how sometimes when I chat with law firm lawyers, I realize you really don't know unless you're living and breathing it. It takes a lot to kind of figure it out, and good law firm lawyers do, and they take the time to figure out what it means to be in-house. But I think until you're in-house, it's hard to really appreciate what it means. Just the pace, the intensity, the pressures, the dynamics, they're different. Not better or worse. They're just different. But you are part of something, like directly part of something. And that thing is this business and the products, and I just loved everything about it. I soaked it up, drank it up. It was great.
I mean, what a place to start the in-house career. I mean, what was Microsoft Legal like back then?
It was smaller, I'm sure, than it is now. I mean, I haven't, I left, I'm looking at the calendar. I mean, I left seven plus years ago, which is hard to believe, but it was certainly smaller. I would say it was also probably a little tighter and clearer and kind of how things worked. I think just the globalization, obviously the move to the cloud. I mean, I was kind of there as this huge transformation was happening and a move to the cloud. And I was leaving right when I think it actually became the standard. And now, of course, with AI, I just think it's become way more dynamic and fluid, and the interactions, the complexity really of a hybrid complex organization like that, plus the way that legal team is structured isn't purely legal, for sure. It is very broad with government affairs and technology and communities is there, and there's a philanthropy piece, and I can't even name all the different other professionals that are part of the broader legal team. So it's a dynamic place. It was before, but I think it's become even just probably unprecedented. Maybe a few other companies like that, but very, very few.
It's an amazing thing, that sort of generational shift to cloud. And obviously now we're going through the next big generational shift, and AI is everywhere. Just tell us about, What are you seeing on the ground in terms of adoption here? There's a lot being written about legal being either fast to adopt or slow to adopt. What's actually happening on the ground?
All right, because I have no other way, I gotta just say it. There's a lot of chaos and noise. A lot. On the one hand, AI is real, it's here to stay. It's been here though. Can we not pretend that it's new? It has just become much more accessible suddenly. That accessibility is the shift that happened about 2 years ago, which has transformed AI in the eyes of many. But AI as a core technology obviously has been around for over a decade. I'm no expert on it, by the way, and I question anybody who actually isn't a research engineer slash PhD technologist to call themselves an AI expert right now.
There's lots of those around.
A new one every minute. Every minute there's one born in my favorite space of CLM, and that intersection is just there's new experts are born every day. So I like to be a realist and very pragmatic about this. A lot of chaos, a lot of noise, a lot of marketing activity, frenzy, words, excitability, hype, crazy valuations, crazy investments, VC money. That causes weird behaviors, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of weird behaviors. Um, well, I don't say good or bad. Some are bad. Some are bad. There is overstatement, overpromise, overcommitment, and it is feeding into a very real sense of FOMO from the legal community. And that FOMO is also causing some unhealthy behaviors and choices and all of that. So that part I don't like. I think it's natural, but I think there is a real thirst for honest, clear, and actionable information that is just hard to find because you have to wade through so much other stuff. And unless you're an expert, you don't know what's what. So a lot is going on. That's kind of I don't want to be negative about it. I'm a fan. I've embraced it. And I'm happy to get into my examples in a minute just to share what we're doing because it is super exciting. And there are certainly the nerds like me out there. They're like, oh my God, I got to get my hands on it. So yes, the FOMO, I'm turning it though into action. And that's what I want legal professionals to do. But hey, guess what? They're busy. They're busy with their day jobs. Please, let's stop telling them everybody needs to become an excellent prompt engineer. Yeah, that's just kind of like, let's not, it's the same excitability and nervousness we cause with outsourcing. That happened 15 plus years ago, I would say. I certainly was involved in it and had to convince my peers inside of Microsoft at the time, hey, yeah, we're going to outsource a bunch of contract review. You got other stuff you need to do. And that whole change management effort and all of that, it's exactly the same, except now it is much more in your face. It's the speed of light. Information's traveling the speed of light. You now have your kids, your uncle, your grandparents, and neighbors are all asking you, hey, lawyer, oh, it looks like somebody's coming after your job. Hey, I hear AI is going to do away with lawyers. So the frenzy is at a kind of at a hyper pace. It's frustrating. It's sad. I mean, I'm seeing so many clients make mistakes that are preventable, that they are preventable. Very good actual technology advancements are happening, but they're being blurred and smushed and covered with layers of hype. That's unfortunate.
I'd love to dig in a bit to CLM. It used to be kind of a little easier to cut these categories in legal tech. There was kind of CLM and there was matter management and everything was kind of distinct and you kind of got it. And now it's all kind of a little bit blurry, but like, what are you seeing happen in CLMs around the vendors, but also kind of more importantly, like what are the clients talking about? Like, what are they thinking about?
Similar to kind of my sentiments with AI and the fluff and the noise, CLM, right before the AI explosion, went through its own VC explosion. Money flew in like crazy, similar probably to what eDiscovery went through a while ago. And then CLM kind of had its day. It's still having its day that's turned into years, but it is transforming completely, rightfully so. I think CLM was tacked on like every other fill in the blank management, knowledge management, information management, content management, knowledge management, spend management, matter management. The list goes on. Half of those overlap with each other, more than half. There isn't one set definition either for those, but CLM was like, okay, well, we could do that also with contracts. We've done it with everything else, well, let's do it with contracts. And just like matter management's my favorite. Ask two people, matter management, two completely different answers. One is just focused on, law firm matters. The other is like, oh, well, we're in-house. We're going to treat everything as a matter. Really? Why? Why are we still talking about law firm words? It's in-house. I digress. That's for another podcast. Let's talk about CLM for a sec. Contract lifecycle management, the concept makes sense. if the world was ready to say, hey, we're going to put aside all of our existing business processes, the methods by which we make money or spend money or engage in human relationships when it comes to our business goals, we're going to put all that aside, the technologies, the processes, and we're going to make the contract the thing that dictates the process. CLM, end-to-end CLM, would be absolutely everywhere before anybody bought Salesforce, before anybody implemented Office Dynamics, CRM, or any of that. That's not reality. And what CLM, end-to-end CLM specifically, I keep doing air quotes, proposes to do is a bit of a pipe dream for any complex enterprise organizations, because they already live in very complex enterprise systems, most of which have a contracting component as part of their business process. Whether you're hiring an employee, consultant, and contracts are the lifeline of business, and that business happens in all kinds of other systems. So I'm seeing the natural, I think, evolution of, I don't say the breakdown of CLM, but the breaking down of components of the aspects of the end-to-end systems, so that systems aren't being implemented end-to-end. End-to-end systems are being purchased, but they're not being implemented end-to-end. And at the same time, point solutions, lack of a better word, popped up over the last couple of years really effectively in certain aspects of contracting, which is why we always look at contracting across the life cycle. Let's actually talk about which phase of the contracting life cycle you're struggling with or you want to improve, and then let's figure out the technology. So I'm seeing that is naturally happening. What customers are saying, that's evolved as well. 3-4 years ago, I need a CLM system. I need a CLM. Where do I get it? Which one? Which CLM? Which one? I saw demos. I need to get one of those. I think fast forward now, we're about 3-4 years into kind of that craze. Certainly right after COVID, it was reached, fever pitch. And now my contracting is a mess. I've seen some stuff. I'm not sure where to start. I don't know what I need, which I find welcoming. I think that is a much more accurate representation of what people actually should be asking.
That's kind of, in a way, a thing that hasn't changed, which is, you still have to be really clear on the problem you want to solve. Like AI can't, help you find out what you want to solve.
I feel so boring every time I say, identify your problem. Which problem you're trying to solve? I feel like every time you say it, it's like throwing out a how are you? Good. How are you doing? Great. And you move on. That's what it feels like. Like nobody's actually stopping to go, no, but really, what hurts? And I think you're spot on. People still aren't really describing their pain. So it takes time to extract that from them in order to solve it with technology.
It's interesting. Because Juro's always been sort of classed broadly as a CLM, but we've always had a kind of particular opinion, and we've been for some people and others have, and not for others. But the thing that we definitely thought a lot about is whether CLMs will be, or whatever iteration of point solutions will be, more and more adopted by those business teams directly versus funneled through the legal team. And, the customers 5 years ago said, no, legal needs to control everything and we want it end to end. Now we hear a lot more of, stuff like we've been working on, like agents that live in Microsoft Teams that will review your contracts and things like that. And that there does seem to be a bit of a shift away from this sort of command and control to decentralized, with the guardrails and everything else in place, but actually kind of direct to those teams. Is that something you see, or is that just a kind of a weird Juro thought?
No, I think we're on the cusp of something for sure. I would say, first and foremost, the need for legal to control CLM wasn't really the right, necessarily best practice to begin with. It was just a default. A couple of reasons. Legal picks up the slack, it slips into the gaps, it closes in, it's the parent, it's the grown up. I've heard it called so many different ways. So kind of ended up being a de facto owner. Sometimes it's an intentional owner. But that concept, again, of contracting as a business process being owned by legal makes no sense. Legal has a very specific function in contracting, as it should. That's legal's job to define. Legal departments do a terrible job of first and foremost saying, hey, I'm here to perform a job. Here's my job. Here's my task. Here's my scope. Here's what I'm here to do. And be the best possible business partner, which is what I'm here to actually do, by the way, In order for me to be that, I don't need to see every contract. Please don't send me every piece of paper. Please don't expect me to redline and edit this 4-page NDA. Legal does a terrible job of defining its own scope, and legal feels mostly, and I'm obviously putting a broad brush over this, but in most part, this is what we see all the time, is legal is in a defensive and a reactive role. Oh my God, oh my God, more contract. It's all coming and they can't stop and they feel it's saying no or pushing back and that's all gentle, not the department of no. I understand all of that, obviously. But you aren't doing a service. It's no different than raising kids. I hate to make that analogy. It's no different than being, I don't want to say no. I don't want to say no because then they won't come to me. I don't want to say no because what if they don't tell me the next time they do something naughty? I don't think that's the healthy way to approach it. In fact, setting boundaries, again, God, that sounds like a parenting class, which is not meant to be. Setting boundaries and being there to really help solve problems is what we want legal to do.
Why are we so bad as lawyers? Is there something in our psychology that we are bad at saying no?
No, I don't think it's our psychology. I think we're trained and rewarded for finding every possible problem. The more problems you find in a law school exam, the better your grade is. Issue spotting is what we are taught for 3 solid years. That is our value proposition to the world. We come out, we can find every issue everywhere, whether it's a slip and fall or a contract, doesn't matter. Our job is to figure out what could go wrong. That is the worst possible approach for a commercial transactions lawyer. That is the worst, because that's how the negotiations become what they are, which is a nonsense dance 99% of the time, which you never have to reopen the contract again, which is what we hope. There's a gap between reality and the pragmatic world of business and legal practice. Those two still are in complete conflict and contradiction. And when you come in-house, it's suddenly tossed at you because you're not rewarded for finding every issue like at a law firm. You are rewarded for getting stuff done.
You've got to make things go right as well as prevent things from going wrong.
That's right. It's a direct conflict. But I want to take a second. I've got so much more to say than just seconds, but I'm going to try on living in Teams, Microsoft Teams, you mentioned specifically. I have a very, very strong opinion. I might go down in flames for this at one point. I don't know. I don't care. I'm too old and cranky to mince words. Lawyers live in Office, Microsoft Office. Yes, they have Google Drive and Google Suite and all of that's great. And they live in it if their company lives in it. But guess who always have an Office 365 license? The legal team. Almost always. I've yet to meet one that doesn't, because at some point we know Google Docs stopped working for contracts. That's a fact. The more and more we see any CLM systems, CLM adjacent systems, contract related systems try to move lawyers into some other place, which I've said 5, 6, 7 years ago when I first started, I'm like, stop trying to get people into systems. No lawyer's going to go log into anything else, nor should they. I still see it happening. I'm going, whoa, how are we not listening to the customer? That is a huge problem. So not listening to the customer. I think you are spot on in what I think where things might go with teams, with agents, with Copilot and all of that. In fact, I saw some amazing things last month at Microsoft, and my team is kind of going to double down on it, to be honest. We're doubling down on Microsoft Teams and Copilot.
It's a really interesting thing. I think, for us, I remember when we first shipped our Word integration, this was sort of the most requested feature we had for obvious reasons. But what's interesting now is you see almost 2 tracks of contracts. So you've got one is like the super routine, low complexity, like the NDAs, your classic NDAs, where we just start to see lawyers say, we're going to customize the playbook and the guardrails and whatever, but we're going to let the team self-serve on this with agents. And then you see this really interesting dynamic where at some point someone in an NDA puts something like really real in. So someone just like throws in a non-solicit clause. And then you triage it to legal, but legal doesn't really want to be talking to an AI agent in Teams. They want to be in Word. So this kind of understanding of that ecosystem and how it connects together, in our analysis of CLM, and we went pretty deep here, there's a lot of mistakes that, and Juro, we include in that, of course, but a lot of mistakes that have been made along the lines you suggest of do we really, really understand the workflows and the users? And if you're not operating in that Word system, you're kind of not set up for success in getting lawyers to use the tools, right?
Most solution providers don't understand the day-to-day life of a commercial contracts lawyer. Also, because the systems are being sold as legal tech, and they're talking to legal ops and legal ops leaders, and they're adding it to their list of matter management, document management, knowledge management, CLM. Absolutely not. Contract management, contracting, CLM, it's a true intersection of legal work and operations. It is the true definition of legal operations, not law department operations, but legal operations. That people don't realize until they're in it, which is why so many legal ops people, when they change jobs, you should see the first thing is, I took a job because I didn't have to deal with CLM. I'm not going to touch CLM with a 10-foot pole. CLM was the hardest thing I ever tried to do. I'll never do it again. These are real quotes. These are real quotes. It becomes a tail that wags the dog. It's the tail that's trying to wag the dog across entire enterprises. That technology, it won't succeed. That's not a successful path. Number one for CLM technology. For CLM as a program and an operation, it's lobbed on to a legal ops head of legal ops or one legal ops professional. That tail's gonna whip up that dog so fast that poor dog's not gonna know what hit it. That's the reality too. It's not being approached effectively. CLM is an enterprise effort and initiative. CLM is not just technology. Contract lifecycle management is an enterprise. It's an enterprise problem / effort, initiative, journey, or whatever, that's the next iteration, I think, certainly that we're taking in terms of the education. And the first book I wrote on CLM Simplified was breaking down these nuggets and pieces. The next book that I've got coming out in the fall actually is going to be about enterprise contracting so that every legal team could figure out where they fit in that and how to solve it with tech, not with tech. It doesn't matter, but really helping legal step back and go, God, what should my role be? Because right now there's a bit of a confusion.
It's really interesting. Let's talk about outside of CLM, the things that you're excited about that you're seeing in technology that you think can really change the game. Any use cases you're hearing from your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely, AI is a game changer. I'm not going to pretend it's not. I mean, I would not even hint that it isn't. It is a huge game changer. I mean, the use cases are the ones that are tried and true that I feel very confident that I would tell any of my clients to try. Use it to summarize documents. Use it to help you prepare emails. Use it to help you synthesize across multiple documents. Use it to help you extract data points and interesting tidbits and information. I mean, all of that is true, and it does it lightning speed. And it's good enough. That's the shift I'm starting to see, is that people are starting to realize, wow, there is just some stuff that's good enough. Again, don't go to a free online, whatever, the free version of ChatGPT and put in a 20-page MSA and ask it what to summarize and then be upset with the results. Set up your expectations to reflect the realities. But I am seeing great use cases, not just, again, in contracting, just day-to-day work. There's nothing better than catching up in the morning for those who work with global organizations going, what did I miss overnight? You literally can ask that now. Look, I'm still a big Microsoft fan. For those living in Outlook and Office, and for those living in the Office 365 world, AI is going to be, I think, a hyper boost game changer, because Copilot is finally having access to your emails, to your documents, to your calendar. I dreamt this up 5-6 years ago. We even had a name for it. I had a couple of techie friends try to help me with it, and we realized it's too big for us. We were like, oh, Google or Microsoft is going to be solving this for sure, and they are. My dream, which I think is every commercial transaction lawyer's dream, for example, so people say, hey, what's the latest on my deal with so-and-so? That kills us. And every day we have, oh my God, the CEO sent an email. The GC sent me an email. The business is irritated. The other side just sent me their latest iteration. Oh my God, I've got to call in 2 hours on the next negotiation. Where the hell am I? What is that thing? What's the latest? That's our constant day job when you have 30 or 40 contracts, pending at any time. Now in Copilot, you can do that, which is a game changer to me. I can ask Copilot, help me prepare for this upcoming meeting, and it will do a great job.
It's amazing as well. I think also for what now gets called legal tech. I think when we were first speaking, I'm not sure it had a name, but legal tech. The question really is like, on what basis do legal techs exist? If you're in a world where you can connect your SharePoint to Copilot and you can ask it questions and things like that, it's kind of a curious space.
It's all going to change. You're spot on. I mean, it will all change somehow. Like, again, without being alarmist, there's no intention for FOMO. It will change. It has to change. And I think if you're hearing people like Satya Nadella talk about, hey, apps are going to go away, applications are going to go away, agents will be doing things from start to end, I'm going to trust that guy. Let's just be super clear. There is no reason to not think, wow, he's onto something. We better plan for that, or we're all going to have very different jobs. I'm believing it. Let's just put it that way. He's not wrong about many of these things.
That use case of data extraction you mentioned briefly, which is one kind of close to my heart because I used to be a corporate lawyer and we used to do due diligence, and I was like the guy reading the contracts and finding the change of control clauses and everything else. And I heard this really interesting thing the other day, which was someone was doing one of these exercises in an in-house team, and they looked at an external law firm to go and do a review. I think it was like 150,000 contracts, and it's kind of like, it's going to be $3 million for the exercise, and they ended up doing it with effectively like a legal tech point solution, and it was still like $50,000 of compute, but like ridiculously cheaper. What I was curious about is how internal legal teams think about the external spend. That is like, is there a chunk of that you can kind of get back by insourcing things that previously like weren't possible?
Absolutely. Perfect question. It's funny because I just got a request to write a chapter of a book for Global Law Biz. I'm sure you've seen some of their books. I can't remember the full name of it, but this is all about spend, law firm spend. And I said the only way I'm going to write about it is if I could talk about spend as it relates to the natural evolution of the resources available to in-house team. And now we've added on AI. So if law firms at the tippity top or one end of the spectrum, whatever you want to call it, and then we of course have the ALSP explosions, formerly known as LPOs, call them what you want, I don't care. Love them, have been using them forever when I was in house for sure. And that was big and scary. And everybody's like, what are you thinking? Live time? You can't give them contracts live time. They're good at reviewing boxes of contracts. I'm now adding on AI as that continuum of the spectrum. So absolutely in-house teams are realizing that. They're seeing it just like they did with ALSP, saying, hey, big firms, next time you're going to give us a pricing thing or you're going to go through some RFP exercise, which those are delightful, again, for another topic of whether they're really valuable or not. And we want to know if you're using LPOs and which ones and pass on those savings. It was all very like, we need to know, we want to get under your hood, which is, of course, contrary to the whole purpose of fixed pricing. But okay, well, again, I digress. Now they're doing the same with AI, which I find fascinating. I actually heard a very big corporate law department, say, we want to know when they're using AI because then I'm going to look at their bills and I'm going to see if there's a first-year lawyer and that they claim to use AI, and I want to know because I want to kind of, bust them. Weird, right? I was like, well, why do you need to bust them? Why aren't you again looking at fixed pricing and just appreciating that whether it's the human, it's resource allocation, and now they have another resource, and it's a super fast bot. It's a robot. You've got.
Do you know, we heard this a lot. I was at Legal Week and there was a lot of law firm innovation teams saying, well, this is fantastic for us because our cost base is going to go down, and everyone's kind of nodding along. That makes sense because you're not going to be paying like human beings to do low value work. Cool. And it's going to be great for our margins. So we go, well, what do you mean by that? And they go, well, instead of $3 million, it's going to be $2 million. But instead of making 30% like margin, we're going to make 90% margin. And we're like, well, whose expense is the margin? It's at the expense of the client, right? So like, and so there was this, we heard a lot about, when will we be passing on those efficiency gains to in-house versus hoarding them in the law firms?
Well, you also have a huge disconnect between the people that were doing that speaking point, the innovation teams, and the actual practicing lawyers. 90% of the practicing law firm lawyers right now are going, I'm riding out the clock. At my career point, I'm good. Interesting. My clients are asking me about it. I have an innovation team that I'm going to send all those questions to. I'm going to keep billing the way I've always billed. That hasn't changed, not with ALSPs, not with any other legal tech that's come up. It just hasn't. So every time at conferences, which we all love going to, there's a lot of it's a complete disconnect between the practitioners and those innovation professionals or the pricing professionals and the actual practitioners. No different than legal ops in-house and the actual lawyers. There's gaps to be filled.
It's a fascinating time. You've seen a lot of change over the last few years. Let's just talk briefly about the culture within those teams. So it's kind of one thing to change up the processes and to buy in the tooling, but what is important when you advise your clients on changing culture? Like, what should leaders be thinking about here?
God, again, hot off the presses, like Lifetime, big legal team, one of our clients that you would know. The CLO of that department was like, I need technology. Um, the change management aspect of the people was very quickly dismissed. And I thought, ouch, sadly, that flurry of FOMO and drive to tech exists at the highest levels as well. If you don't have an appreciation for change management and culture, that cultural change management needs to happen, no amount of technology will be successful. That is that's the boring, unfortunate fact that nobody wants to hear still. And that's a huge problem. It is a huge problem. It is no different than handing a brand new iPhone to your grandpa. Here you go. I got it. It's amazing. Why are you still calling me on your rotary dial? I told you. Called, FaceTime me or whatever. WhatsApp me. It's exactly that. It is. It's here. I've spent a lot of money on this. You know what? I'll even send you to some training. Okay. Oh my God. Even the training, the words being used are beyond. So that there isn't an appreciation for it. And sadly, that drive is coming from the top. The same people at the top who actually aren't living it hands on, by the way. They actually aren't. They're like, we need to be the best and the latest and the greatest. They themselves are like, is that a yellow notepad I see on your desk? Is that a red felt tip pen? So I'm very, we spend a lot of time understanding the culture. We spend a lot of time understanding who are the people behind it. Newsflash, not to sound like a broken record, it all comes down to the people. It all comes down to the people. Aptitude for change, curiosity, interest in technology, capabilities, time, availability, responsibility, accountability. Everything's going to come down to the people. And if you don't have a leadership team that appreciates that and puts in the effort and leads by example, there is no amount of technology that's going to make things better. And it's advice nobody, it's not fun to hear that.
I mean, we're guilty as vendors. I think vendors are often guilty of saying, well, the difficult thing is the tech, right? So the difficult thing, you got to select the tech and it's all kind of complicated. Tech is actually kind of the easy bit. It's like, the hard bit is, do you know what you want to solve? And
do you know where your stuff is? Do you have the right people? Do you even know how to find your information? What do you want this tech to magically do? That is all the problem. I mean, we started talking about CLM readiness, just again back to the CLM space. I don't know, 6-7 years ago, it was like hashtag CLM readiness on LinkedIn. Is that a thing? That should be a thing. Well, it's nice to see now that I see it everywhere. I'm not taking credit for it, but I'm happy to see that the concept is spreading or has spread. Still not being, I don't know, proactively embraced maybe by a lot of leaders. And I think you're right. The tech providers have an obligation and a duty to do better. They really do. Most are failing at it. And so, yeah, they're running for the sale, right? It's a race to revenue. It's a race for valuation. A lot of it goes back to, again, if it's a VC funded model, behaviors are very different. So we're at a bit of it's like a crash of interest, and not because the tech is good or bad. Tech is actually quite good.
And that's an exciting time where you have a clash of interests, you have a lot going on, and we'll have to see what all comes out of this period. But Lucy, it's been fascinating speaking with you. Thank you so much. If folks want to learn about your books and how to find out more about you, where should they head?
Yeah, they should find me on LinkedIn first. Anytime, everybody should connect with me there. The name of our business is InnoLaw Group, like innovation and law together. InnoLaw Group. I'm sure we'll send that'll be available somewhere. We can flash it up. But reach out with questions. We have a ton of resources online just for readiness and thinking about technology. We want buyers to be more educated. That is our mission. So reach out anytime with questions. Happy to chat. And thank you so much for having me. New book's coming out, Enterprise Contracting. I probably need a fancier name because that is not sexy. But we are coming out actually with a methodology and a framework that people can plug in and finally start methodically tackling their contracting problems. And tech is a piece of it, but just a piece. So yeah, we're excited to get the word out on that in a couple of months.
It sounds awesome. I look forward to reading it. Lucy Bassli, thanks so much for being on Brief Encounters.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.